The following excerpt is from the Coffee and Commerce series of the European American Chamber of Commerce of Greater Cincinnati. The event was titled Education Revolution, the Future of Workforce Development, and featured a conversation between John Graft, the Superintendent and CEO of Butler Tech, and Drew Guthridge, the Chief Financial Officer at thyssenkrupp Bilstein in Hamilton, Ohio. This recording was made on March 16th, 2022. And what I want to do before we get started with our actual formal presentation is I'm going to play you a brief video. The theme, the topic for today, the title for today is Education Revolution, the Future of Workplace Development. John Graft and the folks at Butler Tech are absolute leaders in this area, and I'm really happy to have him with us. And I wanted to share with you this video. It's a preview of a video that, or it's a trailer of about a 48-minute, 50-minute video that Butler Tech students actually produced on the education revolution. I think it pretty much speaks for itself. So I'm just going to play this, and then I'll introduce our speakers. So here, hopefully I'm doing this right. Here we go. Can you hear the sound?
I just don't think that a school should be somewhere where you go and sit in the classroom all day and learn the same repetitive things over and over again.
I definitely wasn't pushed enough in my school. I feel like the diversity we have is not nearly enough. I really don't know that many black superheroes. I want people to see their race in a way that they've never seen them before.
Like, nobody thinks about it. If you don't have somebody that's special needs in your family, if you don't have somebody that's deaf, you don't think about what they go through when trying to get help. My goal this year is to get a prototype, my gym-proof hearing aid. I'm here for the people that are often overlooked.
I would say my 5-year goal is making $250,000 to $500,000. I don't think it's really an age thing. It's more of a maturity level and where you want to be in life and where you're at right now.
I really want to write and record and put out a whole EP this year.
It looks like you hate it. If you're not smiling and not moving, it looks like you're miserable.
I doubt a lot of my own decisions and stuff with music. I'll just write a song and then I'll be working on it, listening to it over and over for hours. And then in my head I'm no one's gonna like this, just start over. No one's gonna like this.
I keep telling myself I can do it.
Of the local hospital.
12 students might not return to in-person classes at all.
The system doesn't work for over 1 million students who drop out. They're not finding their passion. They're not finding their purpose. The death of the American public education system is at stake. And so we need to embed something that is a catalyst for change.
So I get choked up when I watch that video. It's just so good. I encourage you to go to butlertech.org, or you can find it on YouTube. Watch the entire documentary. It's remarkable. When I started this job at the EACC, the one issue 5 years ago, the one issue that I consistently heard from employers is workforce. We don't have the skilled workers we need. We can't retain the workers we need. We can't get them trained properly, so forth and so on. I continue to hear that today. You continue as employers to experience that today. It's not just in manufacturing. It's across all different kinds of sectors. And I'm really pleased and proud to be acquainted with and to have the opportunity to work with somebody like John Graft, who is not just a leader in this area, but a visionary. And as you see, really, really focused on trying to address this from the point of view of students, but also, working with employers and engaging with them in doing that. So, John, thank you very much for being here. And then also to introduce Drew Guthridge. Drew is the CFO at Bilstein. And Drew is here to really talk about how Bilstein and Butler Tech are working together very synergistically to create value for each other, to create opportunities for students, to bring new points of view onto their shop floors, so forth and so on, and really to make sure that businesses understand this is not a philanthropic endeavor. This is about your business, and this is about the economic health of our community. So again, I'm really, really pleased to have you here, and I'm going to turn the conversation over to you guys at this point.
Awesome. Thank you, Todd. I know Drew and I have had a little bit of time to have conversation with one another. I first want to thank Todd and the European American Chamber for putting this on this morning. Todd has been a great partner of ours. Anytime I've ever reached out to him to get a connection for a business or to get some insight about how we can be better, Todd has always been at the ready in order to help us out and make that connection for business, and then help us, give students some experiences. So the video that you saw was something that we put together. We didn't have an indication that this documentary was going to be shot during the pandemic year, but it was certainly quite fitting that we were able to document sort of the history, which I hope is now history, of what happened during the pandemic for education specifically. But, part of our impetus in really creating the documentary, and then really interested in having this conversation with Drew today, is that we recognize that education in America needs to change. I don't know what your experiences were, whether you were part of the American education system, whether you were public, private, or charter school, or whether you were educated overseas. But what I do know is that many of the people that are at Butler Tech, our psyche has sort of been, we never fit into the general education system to begin with. So we're crazy enough to believe that we can transform the system, because we were probably the ones that were sitting in the back of the classrooms, not paying attention in class, or were bored out of our minds as to what was happening in the front of the classroom. And so we were those kids that needed career tech education. Some of us actually had that experience of career tech education, and some of us didn't. So, but we're really interested in getting rid of what I call the triangle of blame. We have for so long, whether it's government, whether it's education, or whether it's businesses, we have pointed into a direction as to why something can't be done. And I know that it's frustrating, and there are times that you feel that there's a lot of restrictions, whether you're in business, government, or education, about why we're not making this change fast enough. And I think for us, it begins with taking some risks. We've gone to a 4-day school week in order to give students a 5th-day experience. We've taken some risks, specifically with Bilstein, and Bilstein has taken some risks with us. And I'll let Drew talk a little bit about that as well. But it's really about engaging with one another. Todd announced all of the events that are occurring, and sometimes people think, well, that's just for networking purposes. Absolutely. The networking and connections and the relationships that you build with people are essential, so that when you come up with that idea that might be a remarkable transformation in your business, or a deeper connection for government or education, you have that faith in that person that they're going to do their part and do their work in order to make it better for your organization, or for, in our part, a great experience for our students. So, Drew, I don't know if you want me to jump into sort of the relationship we have with Bilstein, or if you want to start talking a little bit about Butler Tech and your relationship with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can share also maybe for some of our EACC members a little bit of an overview about Bilstein, so maybe they can kind of understand the relationship that we have with Butler Tech. So for those of you who don't know Bilstein, we're located here in Butler County. We're in the city of Hamilton. We are building world-class shock absorbers for OEs. So our products go directly to Tesla, Mercedes-Benz, Ford, FCA. We also sell shock absorbers into the aftermarket. So these are shocks that you as a consumer would go and buy from a parts store, like maybe O'Reilly or AutoZone or Advanced Auto Parts. We're a larger organization here in Butler County, so we're about 700 to 800 employees, depending on depending on the period of time or the year you're looking at. So we kind of have a flux there between 700 and 800. You know, we have experienced tremendous growth in the area. So rewinding back 10 years to 12 years to 2010, we were just over 100 employees. So we let's say had a 7-fold growth in 10 years. And with that comes a lot of different challenges. And I mean, one of the biggest challenges that we look at, we're constantly seeing, and COVID certainly didn't improve the situation for us, is skilled labor coming in, not just in, let's say, the operations side, but also in our first level programming and support side. And that's really where we've been able to partner with Butler Tech and help fill a void that we've had now for quite some years. We recognize, let's say, a secure workforce is one of our biggest threats in the coming years. This hasn't been a secret. And I mean, I think a lot of you have probably seen these statistics on the available workforce in the coming 5 and 10 years. And I think that the situation won't improve. And you see this everywhere. I mean, you see it when you go to Starbucks and attempt to get coffee. You see it when you travel and attempt to check into a hotel. And I can tell you here, when we're trying to build your shock absorbers, it's no different. With that said, we see a unique opportunity to engage in new and collaborative types of production. And one of those is using these cobots, which is a simplified robot. They tend to be, I would say, in the grand scheme of investment, relatively low cost investments. The reality is, to bring them into fruition, to bring them into the production floor, takes a lot of programming time. So 4 years ago, we set up a dedicated team to bring these robots onto our production floor. And we've been successful in bringing 29 into production, which is a huge achievement. But we were very quick to realize that our bandwidth was relatively limited. That was when we engaged with Butler Tech and John, and we saw a very unique opportunity to create a really great kind of win-win symbiotic relationship with Butler Tech to increase our bandwidth by using student resources in exchange for delivering them the opportunity to use some of our new cutting-edge equipment, and also engaging with our industry, I would say, industry-leading team here.
Yeah, and Drew, just for clarification purposes, for those that are listening, these are high school students. And so sometimes there are businesses that say, well, we don't allow high school students to work in our factory or be on the shop floor or engage in such a way. There is an Ohio Revised Code, and maybe one of our staff members that's on the call today can reference it in the chat as to what that particular Ohio Revised Code is. But any student that is in a career tech education program is exempt from some of those rules and regulations about having to be 18 years old in order to have these practical experiences. So these were high school kids that Bilstein decided that, you know, the mobilization, and Drew, how many robots were you trying to mobilize or are trying to mobilize in your factory?
So 4 years ago in 2018, we had 3, and we thought that was pretty much all we could do. That was all we had ideas for. Today, and for those of you who don't know, and I didn't mention this, we name our cobots after US presidents. So 4 years ago, we had Jefferson. Now we have Harding. So, and I know it's still early, that's 29. We didn't implement Roosevelt. So he's still kind of, let's say, lying in wait. So technically 28. We have firm ideas, we have concepts ready to implement Biden +2, so 48 cobots. And I can tell you right now, our limiting factor, our pacing item, is not equipment, it's bandwidth. And by bandwidth, I mean programming, implementation, and these are really the items where we're engaging heavily with Butler Tech.
Yeah, so you know, because our students wanted to have these experiences, and by the way, this is our mechatronics program that he's specifically referring to. And Dave Campbell is an electrical engineer by trade, and so he is our educator. He is also an adjunct professor, and I know Todd just put into the chat room about Sinclair. He is an adjunct professor for Sinclair, teaching our high school students as a Butler Tech employee to get their associate degree when they leave high school. They're leaving with their high school diploma and their associate's degree as well. And then from Bilstein's perspective, I think they gave us, you know, a universal robot because they didn't have the bandwidth to be able to program it. Our students are actually programming the robot. When we complete the task, they unbolt it from our classroom, take it to the factory, put it onto the shop floor, and mobilize it. They bring in a new universal robot for us, and we begin the programming effort again. What I would say about this is that, many times businesses will say, well, why would you do that? One, for bandwidth's sake, I think Drew already mentioned that. Secondly, I will share with you that many of our students in that classroom are already creating what's called brand loyalty. Many of the students will say, when I finish my degree, whether that's at the end of high school or whether they go on to get their engineering degree at the college level, and many of them do, many of them say, I want to work for Bilstein. And so I think that's probably, and Drew, maybe you can speak to this, it's part of the strategy maybe as to what Bilstein initially decided to maybe partner with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been very fortunate in developing, I would say, deep ties with some of the universities in the area, but now we're going one step further and also engaging the I won't say trade, but I'll say a skilled workforce too. So yeah, this is huge for us. I mean, we've seen tremendous success in this. I think continuing to develop a diverse skill base in the region is really important, particularly for manufacturing companies like ours. But this is a huge opportunity for us, and I mean, I can tell you we've already been able to realize it quite heavily in some of our longer standing relationships, specifically with UC and Miami.
Awesome, and we have great relationships with UC and Miami as well, and so many of our students who decide initially not to go on or decide to go on to college, many of them go on to Miami and UC. I would also tell you that many students that participate in a career tech program in high school have a much higher likelihood of staying in the region. I think that's really, really important. Procter & Gamble has figured that out with us. We have now 80 interns with Procter & Gamble because they were having a significant issue of people applying for Procter & Gamble, had tons and tons of applicants, but not staying in the region. I know Drew just mentioned about the diversity of the workforce. One of the things I'm most proud of with Bilstein is our partnership with our Project Life program, which is students with disabilities between the ages of 18 and 22 years old, who we provide job coaches for. We help them learn those practical skills to be in the workplace as well as the social skills to be in the workplace. And Fabian and Bilstein was an early adopter in our Project Life partnership. The employment rate for students with disabilities who become adults with disabilities is abhorred at the national level, but I will share with you that it is in the 90th percentile for students that take Project Life and Project Search programs. And Bilstein has been a partner early on about bringing those students on board, and they show up to work every single day. Their biggest frustration is when Bilstein tells them they have to take a vacation day, because they are one that really like patterns. They really like consistency. And so telling them that they're not allowed to come to work because they have to take their vacation days sometimes is something we have to work through.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in addition to, let's say, providing us with very, very good, stable employees, it's also it's a huge morale booster for a lot of our existing employees too. I mean, to be able to see us reach into the community and develop something like that, like Project Life, has been really good. It's really, like I said, it's really great also for the existing employees. You have to do a little bit of job design up front, which is important. But I think that's where using a program like Project Life versus trying to do it on your own is important. So you can do that upfront job design and make sure let's say the candidate and the business are both set up for success.
Drew, can I just jump in here with a quick question on Project Life? Do you not get some outside funding sometimes when it comes to that re-engineering a job or designing a job to fit a particular need? I mean, you get a little help defraying some of those costs, do you not?
You do. I mean, you can, let's say there's different local and state credits available to you depending on where you're at in that journey. But yeah, that's something you could for sure look into. So definitely at state level too.
I would add, Todd, that recently the Ohio General Assembly just passed what was called Senate Bill 166. It is actually an economic incentive for businesses to partner with career tech centers, incentivizing them with tax credits, and then holding them exempt from any increases in workers' compensation premiums, holding them exempt from any increases if they partner with a career tech center for high school programming and allowing internship co-ops. I believe it's up to $5,000, and they're supposed to release the procedures at the end of this month for about how to do that. So Marnie Durham is here. I think if she can put her email in the chat room if you want to know more about that Ohio Revised Code that I referred to early on, as well as Senate Bill 166, you could reach out to her and she can help you. She's our Assistant Superintendent for Workforce.
Yep, she already put that in the chat, and I'd encourage people to reach out to her. But you touch on a really interesting point, and I'm going to interrupt because that's my prerogative as the executive director. I'm going to interrupt here. Drew, you're the CFO. And John, you've already started now to talk about, sort of the financial implications of some of this. As I said earlier, this is not a philanthropic activity. I mean, it is supporting the community. It is creating opportunities for students, so forth and so on. But, Drew, you're a private company. I mean, you've got owners to satisfy and bottom lines and paychecks to make and so forth. I mean, can you talk a little bit about sort of the financial implications of some of this stuff?
Yeah. I mean, it's a really good question, because at the end of the day, I mean, we want to fulfill some of our community obligations, but we are a private business and we do have shareholder and other stakeholder obligations too. So we need to make sure we're doing it in a financially sustainable way. The partnership that we're talking about here is really benefiting us in two ways. So one, I mean, when you're doing manufacturing in the U.S., you have really two big factors to consider. So what are my local costs of manufacturing, and then what are my costs to do the manufacturing, traditionally, let's say offshore, and then bring it to the U.S. So, and then when you distill those, really you're balancing the cost of local labor or inbound freight. Knowing, and I think again, you look at the last 2 years and we've seen these rapidly rising prices. I mean, inflation is, every month I see a new inflation number that's just higher and higher and higher. So for us, local manufacturing companies specifically, to maintain our competitive edge, we have to look for new ways to reduce or supplement our costs. And clearly labor is a pretty significant cost for us. It's a variable cost for us as well. So we have the opportunity to kind of go up or down or flex our labor with our output. So, and I'm speaking specifically to automation. This is a huge initiative for us to maintain our competitive edge in the region. And it's quite honestly one that we've done very well. It's also one that our competitors have not done very well. So, I mean, the big news 3 months ago was one of our competitor companies, Tenneco in Dayton, is closing a facility the size of ours, 1,000 people. And that facility is moving to China because I believe, among other factors, they weren't very forward looking and they didn't invest in initiatives like this. So with that said, with, let's say, the reason in place, now you look at the means, and the means are, we need a skilled workforce to be able to do these implementations. I can tell you here, what that means is we have a mix of trained controls engineers and then techs and everything in between. So we have a pretty diverse staff working on this. The reality is finding these people is very, very difficult. So being able to utilize the resources of Butler Tech, and again, in kind of this win-win fashion, we're able to really supplement our team here with fresh new ways of thinking. And on that, I'll kind of go into just a little bit of a deeper dive. And this is something that John and I spoke about last week. Early on in the relationship, and again, I shared with you that a lot of our team here is controls engineers, which, sorry to the engineers on the phone, that tend to overthink problems a little bit. When you're doing a cobot implementation with an automated piece of equipment, you can do something called a PLC integration. So this is actually integrating the cobot's, let's say, brain into the brain of the piece of equipment. This is really complex because usually you're mixing like apples and oranges. I mean, this would be like trying to open Microsoft Word on your iPad in 2012. It just couldn't happen. But controls engineers like to solve these types of problems. Interestingly enough, when we presented this problem to some of the students in the Butler Tech program, the comment or the question came up, why don't we just skip that and have the cobot hit the start button just like the operator does? So why do we need to overthink a problem with this very complex integration? If we're replacing an operator or supplementing an operator who's hitting a button, why don't we just hit the button? And I can tell you now, this is like our gold standard. So we just hit the button. And you can see this on a lot of our different implementations here. But this is one of the benefits of a new, fresh way of thinking. And again, nothing against our established controls team. They're fabulous. I mean, they're world class. But just like I'm sure maybe you found in everyday problems, a fresh approach can really bring a new solution to an old problem.
And Drew brings up a great point. And from our perspective, according to the Ohio Office of Workforce Transformation, 47% of the jobs that are currently in existence are going to be phased out due to technological advances. And so we don't want to have employees pressing buttons. We want to have our students have experiences about how they interact and how they ensure that the cobot is working appropriately. And Bilstein does a great job of upskilling their employees. So this isn't a phasing out of an employee pipeline. It's really upskilling employees and seeding, so to speak, their employee pipeline by giving our high school students these experiences.
Let me step in here then, because I want to make sure we have opportunities to engage with the audience and start with the questions and answers. And we already had one question came in from Julie George about sort of the service area for Butler Tech. John, where are you? And then beyond, what communities do you serve? And then, are these, if I'm not, let's say I'm in Northern Kentucky, if I'm not in the Butler Tech service area, where do I go? I mean, who can help me do this kind of stuff?
Yeah, so first, our geographic region, we're in Southwest Ohio, predominantly in Butler County, but we also have programs in Hamilton County. We have 5 campuses, 6 buildings. We also have what are called satellite programs. So we'll have engineering programs in 13 high schools as well. So a Lakota East, a Fairfield, a Hamilton, a Middletown. We'll have engineering programs within those high schools as well. We also have adult education, and that's one thing that I have, failed to mention, that we do a lot of customized training for businesses based upon what your needs are. Then we design and build kind of a program that specifically meets the need of your particular industry on a contractual basis. So if that's something that interests you, you could reach out to Marnie or myself or any of our Butler Tech staff members. What I will share with you is that we end up serving almost 17,000 students in a year's time for high school programs, and then about 2,000 adult education students. Here's a little bit of a frustration. We actually have more students that want to come to our programs than we have capacity for right now. We're looking to try to figure out ways of how we expand this opportunity, because we know just in manufacturing alone, there's approximately 39,000 jobs that are available in this region. And we know when we're turning away between 700 and 1,000 students a year because we just don't have the bandwidth in order to meet that capacity, there is a workforce crisis, and we need to be able to prime the pump and really flood the gates of your office headquarters and your shop's floor with students who have these type of skills. So if you're in the Northern Kentucky region, I think there are great partnerships. I've actually worked with the Kentucky legislature before and having conversations with them, whether it's a community college, whether it's a partnership with a particular high school. We can help navigate how you go about doing it. It's not difficult work. It's really just a change in mindset. But those are conversations that I'm sure other business partners that are part of the European American Chamber and us as an education entity be happy to help anybody.
Well, and I know we've got a couple folks from Perfetti Van Mel on the line, and I'm just curious if any of them, experience that you've had maybe working with Gateway or with Kentucky Fame or some of the other programs. I mean, do you find that you've got a partner like John Graft when you work with those institutions? I don't know if anybody wants to speak up. If you don't, that's fine. We can move on. I don't see anybody unmuting. That's fine. But yeah, I mean, there are great partnerships out there. And I think, this is the thing is that, Butler Tech, John, again, I admire the work that you do, but, you're obviously you can't do it all. So, as you mentioned, you got your partnerships with Great Oaks and with Sinclair and with Cincy State and so forth and so on. And I think it's just a question of employers and companies working together. If you have a question, just a reminder, if you have a question, that reactions bar down at the menu bar at the bottom of your window, if you click on reactions, you'll see a raise hand. Just raise your hand and I'll see it, or if you can put it into the comments box. I will mention Heather Campbell put in the comments box about the Public Student Showcase Night, Thursday, May 5th. That is a wonderful evening. It's extraordinarily impressive to see what some of the students can do, and would encourage you to think about attending that if you can. John, another question I had, I mean, obviously we're here talking primarily about manufacturing, talking about mechatronics, and so forth and so on. But we also know that there's a huge shortage of labor in lots and lots of other fields, in culinary arts, in firefighting, and public safety, and construction. Can you talk just a little bit about some of the other programs that you have, including the adult education components of those?
Yes. So, Todd's exactly right. Advanced manufacturing, obviously, with our Ohio region being the third largest producer of advanced manufacturing, aside from Florida and Texas, I believe. Healthcare continues to be a second aspect. If you've driven along 75 and you've seen our Westchester Bioscience campus, I know I'm not supposed to, and maybe you'll have to edit this portion out, Todd, because I don't like it when I call it this, but the big red building on 75, which is sometimes referred to as the Lego building. Yes, it does look like a little bit like a Lego, but that's our bioscience campus, and we're creating healthcare pathways. I announced last night that we are working to solidify a partnership with Cincinnati State, as Todd referred to. It's going to take more than just Butler Tech. It's going to take our community colleges. It's going to take our four-year universities. It's going to take our adult education. So healthcare is definitely another area, but we have all kinds of programs, whether it's construction, welding, CNC machining, culinary arts, cosmetology, pretty much any industry that has a demand for an employee pipeline, we are probably in it in some way. Our adult education, specifically, we do HVAC, welding, industrial maintenance, and then as well as we do a lot of customized training. And we have several partnerships with a number of businesses that may actually even be on this call that we do contract work with.
Sure. One last question, if I might, John, before we go to the networking session. Bilstein is a big company. 600-700 employees, big HR department, big training division, so forth and so on. For them to be able to work with a Butler Tech, I mean, they've got people to do that. But my company, I'm a small company. I've got 60 employees. I've got 40 employees. I've got 100 employees. I don't have, my HR person is also my accounts payable person. How am I going to be able to work with an organization like Butler Tech? I mean, who are some of the smaller? I mean, not who, but I mean, how do you relate to smaller companies?
Yeah, so I think from Bilstein's perspective, it is a little bit about volume and getting as many students as possible. I would say to the small businesses, we have specifically a workforce services office of which we have staff that can help you navigate through that. And I would say be willing to take the risk to start with one. Start with one student, one particular program, one particular need you have, and see how, I don't want to say easy it is, because it's not easy, but I want to say, see how we work with you with that particular student and see what that return on investment is for you, because I think you will find a financial return on investment, as well as you'll start to see what that pipeline could be if you decide to further invest in a way that helps you create that workforce pipeline for future years. Start with the one. It is always difficult. I would say if you're sticking the sign at the front corporate headquarters saying apply within, good luck. I mean, that's just not the method to do it. The other thing I will tell you, Todd, and I think maybe I learned this at one of the EACC events, was that kids today, the number one place that they go to look and investigate a company is YouTube. They don't go to LinkedIn. They don't go to Indeed. They don't go to those places. They go to YouTube first. And I think I applaud you, Todd, for having a YouTube presence. I mean, you're going to go viral here any minute.
That's good, John. I appreciate that. Drew, any last words from you?
No, I mean, I certainly appreciate the opportunity to speak to the group today. So huge shout out to John, his team at Butler Tech. I mean, it's excellent the partnerships we've been able to build in the community here. Thanks, Todd, you and the EACC group for holding that Coffee and Commerce. And then from our side, huge thanks to Michelle from our HR department. She's on the line. I can tell you that our HR team has a huge hand in making these partnerships work. So it's not, you can't just set it and forget it. They take constant nurturing and communication, and Michelle is excellent at what she does. So huge shout out to her and her team here at Bilstein too for managing the partnerships.
Yeah, and just a quick shout out, Todd. I know we're probably running short on time. It does come not only from Michelle and the team of the HR department, but Fabian is committed to this. And so when it comes from the top, and I know Drew's a part of it as well, when it comes from the top that we're committed to doing this, the complications of it tend to work itself out a little bit easier. We can burnish off the edges a little bit faster.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, thanks to you guys, Drew, for your for Bilstein being able to lead on this, John, just for your inspirational leadership on this topic all the way around. I continue to find it very refreshing and exciting. So I appreciate the work that you guys do. So now we're going to move in.